Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. All right then, and we have rolling tape. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I hope this finds you in good health and secure. Let us continue with our selecting the right time Gosho. And I don't know that we've reviewed this Gosho. Certainly not this translation. It seems similar to other writings, but this one seems distinctly different. And I appreciate it for the way it's breaking down the 500-year periods right now. As we, in this video, we're moving to the Buddhism in Japan during the age of the semblance Dharma. So this is prior to the Age of Degeneration, right? This is prior to Nichiren. So this will set up, I'm assuming, our current state of affairs. Yeah. So let's do this. This will describe the movement of Buddhist scholarship from China. I don't know how much he'll discuss Korea, but certainly to Japan and the back and forth between these two countries, leading to the development, of course, the transmission of Tendai from China to Japan. And I don't know what other sects he'll be talking about, but I'm sure he'll cover a broad swath to lead up to the situation of his day, right? So let's see how he goes. He's talked about these sporadically, but this is a dedicated section. So here we go. He starts with, after 400 years or so since the beginning of the Age of Semblance Dharma, all the scriptures of Buddhism, together with the wooden statues, statue of Lord Shakyamuni, monks and nuns were sent from Pakchi to Japan. So there it is, from Korea to Japan. This was toward the end of the Liang and the beginning of the Qin dynasties in China. And during the reign of the Emperor Kimei in Japan, the 30th ruler of Japan, counting from Emperor Jimmu. Now remember, this is prior to the shogunate. This is when many countries were ruled by people in the West and in the East, by people who were thought to be imbued with the wisdom of the gods, these unknowable forces. So they were a deification of sorts, just like in the days of the pharaohs in Egypt, right? There was this thought that if you were born of the caste or class or to most people ignorant of that whole socioeconomic structure to begin with, other than the realization of their own and reckoning with that, this elite class that somehow produced these leaders, they must have been imbued by things that the general populace couldn't even understand. And this is what gave them their tremendous wisdom to lead the masses. Now, we can debate whether or not that's something that was promulgated by the elite to make everyone believe that they were of a lower class, that they couldn't possibly take on these kinds of grand and important decision making, and therefore people just bought into it because, after all, most of them could not read or write anyway, so they barely knew. They knew what they knew in order to survive, but something about running the country and make decisions for others, oh, that's way too hard to do, right? Or whether this was something that grew out of a general population of people who didn't want to be responsible for those kinds of things. And so by default, those with the audacity to think that their decisions could rule over everyone. You know, you can figure this out for yourself. Many, many scholars for hundreds of years have been trying to figure that one out. People generally settle into certain camps and go, well, we don't think we're imbued, but we'll go ahead and take that on because we like what it offers us, the wealth and prestige that it offers us, right? Those that would pretend to know that there's no special qualification for that, and therefore why not them, right? And everything in between, all the way down to those who just as soon would not be bothered with making decisions involving anyone else, let alone all that many requiring responsibility for their own lives, right? And now we're back into the discussion of this authoritarian tendency in the human species, right? So, however you fall on that debate, certainly the years prior to this latter age of development of the human mind, the human species, the cultures and countries of the world, certainly were ruled by that auspices. Not that they aren't today. There seems to be quite a swing backwards toward that, and it's quite alarming, my humble opinion. So 400 years ago, since the beginning of the age of semblance Dharma, and all the scriptures of Buddhism, together with the wooden statue of see, this isn't Lotus Sutra Buddhism. It's getting carted along with all of the scholarship of Buddhism, but a statue of Lord Shakyamuni would have never stood for that, period. But somehow it got inculcated throughout history that we can have these as objects of veneration and worship, right? Which isn't Buddhism. But let's move on. Monks and nuns were sent from Pakshi to Japan. This was towards the end of the Liang and the beginning of the Chen dynasties in China, and during the reign of Emperor Kimei in Japan, the 30th ruler of Japan, counting from Emperor Jimmu. Then Prince Shotoku, the first son of Emperor Yomei, who was a son of Emperor Kimei, not only spread Buddhism, but also designated the Lotus Sutra and the Vimalakirti Sutras and the Srimala Sutra to be the fundamental dharmas for pacification of the country. For pacification of the country. Isn't that politely said? Now, you've heard me say this before, and I'll say it again because Nichiren brings it up here. The marriage, if you will, of spiritual domains and ruling class is legendary throughout the history of humanity, right? Go back to the Vikings, if you will. Go back to, I just mentioned Egypt. There's this long history of, as long as we're imbuing the rulers as being some kind of magically powered individuals, then it follows that anything about magical powers would go hand in hand with the ruling class. They knew what they were doing. They knew that they were dealing with the psychology of the populace. And the bigger the populace grows, the more unmanageable it is to go and smack people on the back of the hand for doing something wrong. You have to have a ruling force, a policing force, as huge as your entire population, bigger even, because then you have to rule them too. So the easiest thing to do, as Michel Foucault, the French philosopher, would point out over and over and over again, is to establish this idea, this inculcated thinking that surveillance was something constantly occurring. And the muddied ground between omniscient, powerful other and the ruling class would, and this is the human mind, my friends, would be able to feel constantly surveilled, like being watched from a ruling entity, while not being able to identify a single one anywhere in your environment. And I don't just mean on the farm, is he in the trees? I mean in my bed, watching my very thoughts. It's when you take it apart like that, it's a really psychological sickness. The idea that none of your thoughts are your own. That even if you claim them to be your own, somebody else is inventorying them. Oh my goodness, how mentally breaking is that? That's the function of religion, always has been. Hand in hand with a ruling class that knew, embarrassingly enough, I'm not specially imbued with anything, but if I play the game of being specially imbued, and I have these cohorts who will extol my extra abilities to the people, I can comfortably walk into any room and demand obedience because I have this undefinable, unqualifiable, unobservable power that everyone buys into. How amazing, how wonderful, right? So modern politics haven't deviated very far from that. We have people saying things with words that are absolutely nutbags. And yet they hide behind the curtain of Oz, you know, the Wizard of Oz going, don't look behind the curtain. Just do as I say. Don't even think about what I do. That's beyond your realm. Well, fundamentally, this is why Shakyamuni caused such a stir way back in his day, and why many people wanted to kill him. It's reenacted again with Nichiren, of course. Stop showing people what's behind the curtain. You can't tell people they have agency in their own life. How can we control them? Well, we've gotten to a point in our species, haven't we, where that argument takes place in our own minds. We're not sure. That's a desperate situation, and that's why this is the age of degeneration. Because you and I don't understand, even though intellectually we do, that we truly are the only agents of our own lives. And that is Buddhism's, my friends. This is Buddhism's central point. That karma isn't imposed upon you, it's of your making. Always has been. That whatever your karmic manifestation is, it's yours to manipulate. It's yours to construct your perfect life. It doesn't have to constantly cause you pain, suffering, anxiety, any of that. Those are imposed belief systems on what otherwise is up to you to change. This is the power of Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Myoho Renge Kyo is that law of change, that law of instantiation, that law of manifestation. How would you like your next moment to manifest? And if you say rich in a beautiful house with blah, 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 you're not thinking Buddhist now. You're thinking samsara. You're thinking possessions. You're thinking have not. You're thinking the trap. All of those things, they're there, but that's not why they manifest or how they manifest or whether you have them or not is irrelevant. What is only relevant is your state of mind, your state of being, each moment, each 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. What's the next moment, the next moment, the next moment? If you can start to make those, narrow that 3,000 realms of experience for yourself, shift it toward the full expression, the unmitigated expression, the expression without regrets and fear and possessing, and simply get in the flow of the universe. All of that other stuff, it just falls in line. It has no choice. It's just manifesting. What you participate of it is simply a matter for you to decide. How do you decide it? Get yourself an object of focus, a mandala. Enshrine it so that it is undisturbed focus. And then ply your daimoku to instantiate it in your consciousness, in your mind, the ninth consciousness. Yeah? Be it. That's the whole game. So, back to Nichiren. Sorry for the aside, but I thought it needed to be said. So pacification of the country. Remember, that's what sent me on this. Because if you keep people thinking that they don't have the power themselves to run their own lives, where's it going to come from? Who's going to give it to them? We'll step in. We're the rulers. It's a drug power, yeah? Afterwards, during the reign of Emperor Kotoku, the 37th sovereign of Japan, Bishop Kanroku transmitted the two schools of Sanran and Jojitsu from Pakche, and monk Dosho introduced the Hoso and Kusha schools from China. So Japan was now becoming a receptacle for a lot of competing ideologies, all with basically the same agenda, right? They were just competing for the pot of money and rule and protection from the ruling elite. So I'm talking about, if you're a ruling elite, talk about the power you feel. Not only are you imbued with all this power from these philosophers, religionists, and pliers of mental psychologies and behavior, but now they're all competing for your money, so you have control, conversely, over them. Well, which of you provides me with the most protection? Which of you gives me the highest cloud to stand on? Ooh, I like the way you talk. Let's make all the temples in the country yours. We'll take those away from you guys. Because lately things have been going a little rough, and I need to make a change. Right? We have movies about this kind of behavior. Yeah? It's scary when you think of how real that is. It's not fantasy. Well, it is and it isn't. We can debate that point, but it depends on where you're looking from, right? During the reign of Emperor Gensho, the 44th emperor of Japan, Tripitaka master Subankarashima, or Shanwu Wei, transmitted the Great Sun Buddha Sutra from India, but he returned to China without spreading it in Japan. In the reign of the 45th ruler, Emperor Shomu, monk Shinjo introduced the Kigan flower garland school from Silla, and he transmitted it to Bishop Ryoben and Emperor Shomu, causing them to build the great Buddha of the Todaiji Temple. During the same reign, Venerable Qianchen Ganjin of Tang, China, transmitted the Tendai and Ritsu, or the Lu schools of Buddhism. Of the two, Qianchen spread Ritsu Buddhism in Japan and established the Hinayana precept dais at the Todaiji Temple. However, he never mentioned the Lotus School before his death. After that, during the reign of Emperor Kamu, the 50th emperor, or 800 years after the beginning of the Age of the Semblance Dharma, a monk named Saicho appeared, who was later known as Grandmaster Dengyo. At first, he studied the 6 schools of Buddhism, Sanron, Hosso, Kigan, Kusha, Jojitsu, and Ritsu, as well as Zen Buddhism from such masters as Bishop Gyohyo. Meanwhile, he himself established the Kokushoji Temple, later renamed the Enraku-kuji Temple, on Mount Hiei, where he checked basic sutras and commentaries on the 6 schools against the interpretations by scholars of those schools. So, those scholars that had all made their positions with leadership, who were espousing their school's teachings, Dengyo said, well, let's see what their school's scriptures say. I hear what they're saying, but does it match up with their venerated documents, right? What do the documents say, and do they agree with what I'm hearing? Obviously, there was some curiosity there. For what reason, I don't know. And Nichiren isn't sharing. And so he checked basic sutras and commentaries of the 6 schools against the interpretations by scholars of those schools. He found many discrepancies between interpretations of scholars and their basic sutras and commentaries. What's going on here? Moreover, they produced so many false opinions that he felt all those who believed in them would fall into 3 evil realms, right? Whether they were right or wrong, these schools with their documents, the teachers promoting those schools, they weren't promoting what the school's teachings were saying. They were promoting something other. They were misleading people. And so they would fall into the lowest of human behaviors, hell, hunger, animality, right? Competition, greed, manipulation, me, ego, yeah? Because they're not following their own teachings, for crying out loud. What's that to say to the people they're teaching? Following these rules. They're going to make a mess of the country, right? Besides, Saicho found that those scholars of the 6 schools each boastfully claimed mastery of the true teachings of the Lotus Sutra without actually mastering it, if they even read it. He tormented himself thinking, if I point this out, there will be disputes. Oh, yeah. If I keep silent, I will be going against the Buddha's warning. How can I do that? Fearful of the Buddha's warning, he finally appealed to the Emperor Kamu, who was astonished and ordered the scholars of the 6 schools to meet Saicho in debate. You did it now, right? At the beginning, their banner of self-pride waved as high as a mountain, and their evil thoughts were more vicious than poisonous snakes. Oh yeah, we need to shut this guy up. Moreover, or however, they finally had to surrender to Saicho in front of the emperor and the 6 schools and 7 temples all became Saicho's disciples, followers. Because the sutras are the sutras. And all Saicho had to do was point out, the sutra says this, but you're spreading that. It's not me that's calling you out, it's the sutra that's calling you out. Isn't that interesting? The scholarship of Buddhism is constantly redressed and cleared up by the sutra itself. Wow. It's not a matter of competing egos. It's not a matter of who's right and who's wrong. It's a matter of what is documented as right and why aren't you following it? The emperor's naked. The emperor's new clothes keeps coming to mind, yeah? However, they finally had to surrender to Saicho in front of the emperor, so he was the pious witness, if you will. It was just like the time those scholars from northern and southern China became disciples of Grandmaster Tendai. See, there it is, the history. This keeps repeating, right? Why do you think Nichiren is pointing this out? After being defeated in debate by him in front of Emperor Chen. Excuse me. While Grandmaster Tendai's comparison of the lotus to other sutras was limited to the areas of meditation and wisdom, without covering the area of observing precepts, Grandmaster Dengyo refuted the specific granting of Hinayana precepts and performed the ceremony for the specific granting of Mahayana precepts. Yeah, that was a big, big shift in Japan. That all of these sects that filtered through China and Pakchi and Sila into Japan had gone all the way back to precepts, rules of behavior. Because it's easy to impose rules on people, right? Much harder to give them responsibility for their own enlightenment. Oh my goodness, we can't let them think they're in control. So let's recede everything in Buddhism back to those early teachings where everyone just had to do what they were told. 250 rules here, 500 rules there, on and on, right? The early teachings of Shakyamuni. He had to do that at that time. But there was an evolution away from that, yeah? But these later teachers saw a lot of power in that. We can't let people think for themselves. What was Shakyamuni thinking? Well, that's just for us smart people, people in control. We know we don't have to follow those precepts. It's pretty simple when you look at it objectively, the history of everything in mankind, but also in Buddhism, right? The thing is, Shakyamuni left such clear documentation of the steps of evolution. How would it appear 500 years after he was gone? 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 years. And sure enough, here it is. He knew, he clearly lined it out. And so if somebody were able to stand in the crowd and go, says here, so what the heck are you doing? Ooh, that would be a great disturbance, wouldn't it? Certainly, going all the way back to Hinayana, early teachings of privations, and right, it's like going back to Siddhartha's early 6-7 years of privations to try to discover the truth. It's no longer necessary. You don't need to do that. You know what it is to starve. You don't need to learn it. Excuse me. According to the Brahmanet Sutra, for 8 monks of the 6 schools in Nara, he established the Mahayana precepts. In addition, Grandmaster Dengyo established the, quote, perfect and sudden lotus precept dais on Mount Hiei for granting the precept ceremony, what's often called the ordination platform. What are your commitments to yourself, the people, the teaching, yeah? Therefore, the perfect and sudden, specific granting the precept ceremony on Mount Ye was not only the first of its kind in Japan, but also the first ever held in India, China, and the world for over 1,800 years since Shakyamuni performed it on Mount Sacred Eagle. Now that's an interesting parallel that he's drawing, or an equation that he's drawing, that the ceremony in the sky, the Lotus Sutra, the teaching of self-realization, self-manifestation, self-practice, is the Mahayana precept, the master of precepts of one's own Buddhahood. In this sense, Grandmaster Dengyo's accomplishments were greater than those of Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, Tendai, and Mialo. Not a single monk of Japanese Buddhism today, including those of the Toji Temple, the Onjoji Temple, the 7 great temples in Nara, the 8 schools of Buddhism, and those of the Pure Land Zen Ritsu schools, was opposed to this perfect and sudden precepts of Grandmaster Dengyo. Why do you suppose it was perfect and sudden? Namo Myo Renge Kyo, boom, Buddha in your mind. Invocation of your enlightenment is on you to do. You've just given the people the power to their own enlightenment. Why in the world would they ever listen to anyone else telling them what to do? This is a crisis. Yeah? Though Buddhist monks in the entire land of China seem to be disciples of Tendai, as far as perfect meditation and wisdom are concerned, since there was no platform for the perfect and sudden precept established in China, some Chinese monks may not have been disciples of Tendai in this regard. They were just following the program, right? In Japan, on the other hand, Buddhist monks who were not disciples of Grandmaster Dengyo were either non-Buddhists or villains, because now the line's been drawn. So when you hear me saying of other practices, they're not Buddhism, that's what he just said. If you're not following this perfect and sudden enlightenment of the Lotus Sutra for invoking Buddha in your life in samsara, then you're not practicing Buddhism, period, plain and simple. Or you're actively working against it, meant villains, right? As for the comparative superiority between Tendai and Chenyin, or Shingon, Buddhism in China and Japan, Grandmaster Dengyo knew this personally, but such public debates in the presence of the emperor, as in the case between the 6 schools of Nara and the Tendai school, were not held. There was a period of transition that needed to happen. It's too much too fast, right? Perhaps because of that, all of Japan, after the time of Grandmaster Dengyo, beginning with the Toji Temple, 7 great temples of Nara, Onjoji Temple, and everybody from the emperor down to the people, believed that the Shingon school was superior to the Tendai school. Damn it. Therefore, it was only during the time of Grandmaster Dengyo that the Tendai Lotus School was regarded to be the prime school of Buddhism. When he died, a bunch of vultures were ready to take over. Oh, okay, you've misunderstood what he meant. I'll tell you what to think. This was towards the end of the age of the semblance Dharma, referred to as the period of solid temple construction in the Sutra of the Great Assembly. This was predicted by Shakyamuni. It was not yet the 5th 500-year period, the latter age, in which disputes and quarrels would be rampant within the Buddhist world, and the true teaching of the Buddha could or would disappear. This is our day and age. And this is where he takes a shift, and the next section I will read is the Japanese Buddhism in the latter age of degeneration. Now we're getting into Nichiren territory. And Nichiren's elucidation of the Lotus Sutra, the Mahayana Sutra. Why the ground has been set, humanity keeps ebbing back to its authoritarian, tell me what to do so I'm not responsible. It's been shown better, which is what Nichiren points out all the time. Look, Dengyo cleared this up. What is wrong with you people, right? But he also recognizes he is now in that 500-year period where all these debates are going to take place. So obviously, all of the calamities that happened to him personally aren't about Nichiren the fisherman's son. They're about Nichiren, the voice of reason, of a return to the truth of Shakyamuni's teachings, and all of the avarice and greed and animality and manipulation and anger that has been fomenting amongst all these competitors and pretenders to the side, the right hand of the throne and the power. Now, not only is the power some deification, it's followed by a sword. Yeah, we're not going to let people think about if we're powerful or not. We'll cut their frickin' heads off if they don't agree. It's gotten really, really visceral. That's the world we live in, my friends. So this is Nichiren dealing with it, right? We've been in the latter age for over 200 years now, and this is the time when the Sutra of Great Assembly predicted disputes and quarrels within Buddhism would be rampant, and the true teachings of the Buddha would disappear in this melee of corrupted, mistaught, misremembered, influences would be rampant. Well, here we are, right? If this prediction by the Buddha is true, this would be the time for a world filled with fighting. I heard that the entire land of China, 360 states and 260 provinces, has been conquered by the Mongols, right? The great invasions of Kublai Khan and so forth. I heard also that the capital of the Sung dynasty had already been destroyed while its two emperors, Huizong and Qingcheng, who had been taken captives by northern barbarians, died in the land of the Tartars. Chased out of Chang'an, Emperor Gaozong, grandson of Emperor Huizong, has been living in a temporary capital, Lin'an, or Hangzhou today, for several years now without seeing Chang'an again. Over 600 lands of Koryo, as well as Silla and Pakchi in Korea, were all attacked by the great Mongol emperor, just as today in Japan, the islands of Iki, Tsushima, and Kyushu are under fire. The Buddha's prediction, foretelling the time of disputes and quarrels, is proving to be as certain as the ebb and flow of the ocean. Looking at these things from this angle, is there any doubt about the spread of the Lotus Sutra, the true teaching of the Buddha, all over Japan and the world, following the period of the disappearance of the true Dharma predicted in the Sutra of the Great Assembly? The Sutra of the Great Assembly was preached by the Buddha, but it was a quasi-Mahayana Sutra. It does not show the true way to cut the chain of life and death and attain Buddhahood. Therefore, we cannot claim it to be the true sutra for those who have not heard the Lotus Sutra. Nevertheless, does not the sutra seem exactly like the Lotus Sutra in describing the transgression of beings born in the 4 modes of birth, in the 6 base realms, throughout the lives of the past, present, and future? Yeah. Moreover, it was in reference to the Lotus Sutra that Shakyamuni Buddha declared in the 2nd chapter on expedience, expedient means, skillful means, he would reveal his true intention and that the Buddha of many treasures attested it to all be true, and all the Buddhas throughout the universe declared it to be true by reaching the Brahma heaven with their long, wide tongues. This will be told of throughout the universe. His never-lying tongue, touching the highest heaven in the realm of form, Shakyamuni Buddha again declared to the king of the Brahma heaven, Indra, and the sun god, the moon god, the four heavenly kings, the dragon gods, quote, in the fifth 500-year period, when all the teachings of the Buddha are about to disappear, Bodhisattva superior practices will be entrusted with the 5 ideograms of Myo, Ho, Ren, Ge, and Kyo, the Sutra of the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Dharma, as the cure for those slanderers and non-believers of Buddhism who suffer from white leprosy. Right? These diseases are often used to equate the condition of mind. How could these words of the Buddha be false? Even if the earth turned upside down, high mountains crumbled, summer did not follow spring, the sun set in the east, and the moon fell on the earth, there would be no mistake about this. Shakyamuni was infinitely clear. So, other than recounting history accurately through all of the documentation, Nichiren is also setting up his argument, isn't he? He's saying, now, in light of all these teachings of Shakyamuni, in light of everything that he said, in light of how many times throughout thousands of years, always somebody comes up, some studied monk comes up and says, the emperor's naked. You guys don't know what you're talking about. Why? How can you say any of this drivel when, in fact, here are the words of Shakyamuni? You should be ashamed. And over again, all of these posers, they have to kowtow to that voice. And time again, that voice, because it's perceived as an individual rather than the law, as soon as that individual perishes, let's go back to normal. Let's screw everything, blah, 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 right? We'll do what we want. How quickly people forget. Follow the law, not the person. Over and over and over, it demonstrates itself throughout the history of Buddhism. And now Nichiren is in this position, and he's pleading with anyone with half a brain. Look at this history. Look at where we are now. Hello. Yeah, this is Nichiren all the time. So rather than jump on that soap wagon right now, when it's still kind of raw, this history, to whoever's reading this, let's take another mediatory step. The next paragraph, or the next section, sorry, is persecution of a practicer of the Lotus Sutra. Well, that makes sense after everything we've learned here. Seems like anyone who would practice the Lotus Sutra would be taking quite a risk. Yeah? Yeah, we're not quite to Nichiren going na-na-na-na boo-boo, are we? But we're getting closer. If there is no mistake about the words of the Buddha of many treasures, and all the Buddhas throughout the universe, how can the king of Japan, his vassals, and all the people feel at peace, abusing, speaking ill of, banishing, and striking me, Nichiren, and inflicting much suffering on my disciples and followers? Okay. He got to it faster than I thought he was going to. But he's identifying himself rather cleverly, not as Nichiren, the enemy, but as Nichiren and my followers, as practicers of the Lotus Sutra. This is not mere deflection, my friends. This is him adopting the position from the sutras themselves, saying, I'm just carrying out the duties of Shakyamuni Buddha. It's not me. Don't be angry with me. These are the teachings of Buddha. You want to be angry with that? Do so at your own peril. Pump. Yeah. After all, I, as a messenger of the Buddha, am only trying to spread Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. In this period of disputes and quarrels, I'm just trying to... Here it is. Here's the goal. All you people fighting each other for no freaking reason. Look, this is all you have to do. Stop. With my saying this, ignorant people might think I, Nichiren, am cursing the entire land of Japan. Actually, however, those who spread the Lotus Sutra in Japan are parents of all the Japanese people, because they're the reasonable ones, bringing the children to order, yeah? Grandmaster Chang'an's annotation on the Nirvana Sutra teaches us that pointing out a man's mistake to help him get rid of it was doing him a favor. Then I, Nichiren, am the parent of the reigning emperor of Japan. Ooh. But he's right. Can't say he's wrong. For followers of the Buddha of infinite life, Zen Buddhists, Shingon monks, I am the teacher and master. They need to get their crap in order. Nevertheless, everyone in Japan, from the emperor down to the populace, does me harm. I'm doing nothing but trying to give them the correct path, pointing it to them. Not follow Nichiren, follow this correct path. I'm the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. How do you expect the sun and moon to shine over their heads, or the earth god to sustain their feet? When Devadatta struck Shakyamuni Buddha, the earth trembled and threw out flames. When the anti-Buddhist king Mihilakula beheaded Venerable Shima, his right hand fell off holding the sword. Within half a year after Emperor Huizong of the Sung dynasty banished Tripitaka master Fa Tao to the south of the river with the mark of a branding iron on his face, the emperor became a captive of barbarians. This imminent attack on Japan by the Mongols could be the same divine punishment. Even if all the soldiers in all of India are mobilized, and even if the surrounding iron mountains are fortified, you cannot defend Japan. All the people in Japan are bound to suffer from the calamity of war. Then you will know whether or not I, Nichiren, am a true practicer of the Lotus Sutra. Again, Nichiren, again stating that he is a subservient entity to the Lotus Sutra, that it is the Lotus Sutra that is true, that it is the Namu Myoho Renge Kyo that is supreme, that is the way. Self-practice, self-realization, self-manifestation, Buddha manifestation, yeah? I'm going to go a little long today, but I think this train of thought needs to be fully explored. Lord Shakyamuni declared that those who speak ill of and abuse a propagator of the Lotus Sutra in the latter-day period of the evil world would be made hundreds of thousands of billion times more sinful than those who harm him, the Buddha, for as long as a kalpa. Nevertheless, the sovereign of Japan and his people persistently harbor enmity against such propagator more than even against their parents. Enemies and their enemies from previous lives, or revile him more than do traitors and murderers. Yet the earth does not split open to swallow them, or thunder does not shatter them into bits. I wonder why. Is it because I, Nichiren, am not a true practicer of the Lotus Sutra? If so, it is regrettable indeed. How sad it is for me to be accused by everyone without time for rest in this life and fall in evil realms in the next life. Also, if I, Nichiren, am not a true practicer of the Lotus Sutra, who is the upholder of the one vehicle teaching, the Lotus Sutra? Is Honen, who advised people to discard the Lotus Sutra and his collection of passages on the Nembutsu? Shandao, who said the praise of rebirth in a pure land, that not even 1 out of 1,000 people can attain Buddhahood through the Lotus Sutra? Or Dao Chao, who declared attaining Buddhahood through who declared in the collection of passages concerning rebirth in the pure land that no one attains Buddhahood by means of the Lotus Sutra, the practicer of the Lotus Sutra? Or is Grandmaster Kobo, who stated in his treatise on the 10 stages of mind that practicing the Lotus Sutra was merely a joke? Is he the practitioner of the Lotus Sutra? It is preached in the Lotus Sutra that we must uphold it and propagate it in the 17th and 11th chapters respectively. What does propagating this sutra mean? As it is said in the 14th chapter that the Lotus Sutra is supreme of all sutras, only those who insist that the Lotus Sutra is superior to such sutras as the Great Sun Buddha, Flower Garland, Nirvana, and Wisdom are true practitioners of the Lotus Sutra. Obviously, if this is so, practitioners of the Lotus Sutra, except for Grandmaster Dengyo and I, Nichiren, have not existed for more than 700 years since Buddhism was introduced to Japan. I've been wondering then why those who abuse and speak ill of me, a true practicer of the Lotus Sutra, are left unpunished. Right? Nichiren has talked about this a lot, his moments of doubt. Am I doing this right? Because if I am, all of these other things should be happening. They don't seem to be. Am I doing this? He's constantly censoring himself. Censoring not by not saying anything, censoring by trying to find the perfect way to do this. Yeah. It's no wonder that Nichiren found the perfect way in a very simple form to simply dedicate one's, I'm present, I'm applying myself, Myoho Renge Kyo. That's it. That's the entire lesson of self-Buddha manifestation. I've been wondering then why those who abuse and speak ill of me, a true practicer of the Lotus Sutra, are left unpunished. I now know, however, why their, quote, heads have not been split into 7 pieces, end quote, or their, quote, mouths have not been sealed, end quote, as predicted in the 26th and 14th chapter of the sutra. Such punishments are relatively light and concern only a few people. Ooh. Nichiren is the prime practicer of the Lotus Sutra in the whole world. Those who abuse me, hate me, and others who side with such people should suffer from the severest calamities in the world. The great earthquake of the Shoka era that shook entire Japan, and great comet of the Bunei era that ran across the sky were such punishments. Think on this carefully. Many have harmed practitioners of Buddhism after the death of Shakyamuni Buddha. But calamities as severe as the ones we have never occurred before. The level of famine that we're dealing with, the level of all these disasters. This means that never before has there been a person admonishing all the people to recite Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Is there anyone in the whole world who can see eye to eye and stand shoulder to shoulder with me to evaluate the merits of spreading the Lotus Sutra? And we'll end the video today on that. The next section is the Lotus Sutra during the ages of the true Dharma and the semblance Dharma. So that'll be a question and answer period. He's very well set that up, hasn't he? So, What is the ultimate teaching of Buddhism? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. What is the ultimate practice of Buddhism? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. But clearly by now you should realize that being present and invoking Namo Myoho Renge Kyo contains within it not only the simplicity of invoking complete responsibility and actualizing your maximal potential in this brief lifetime that you have, but it also carries with it the meaning of centuries, millennia, all of human progress, evolution of the mind. And that contains within it the evolution of this entire universe. And this is why when you hear these statements referring to, in whatever translation, the idea that original enlightenment, that this Buddha nature has always been a part of this universe, the core concept from which everything manifests, that's where that idea, that construct comes from. But make no mistake, experiencing Buddha is only available to your conscious mind in this brief lifetime. It is a here and now proposition. Get your mind right now. It will never have another opportunity. Because when you're dead, you're dead. There's no mind. Those that would try to convince you that there's this all-being consciousness everywhere, that's religion. That has nothing to do with Buddhism. From the very start, I say it again, Siddhartha's goal was to learn how to live this life optimally. And that is done by awakening to the nature of all phenomena, Buddha. In this moment, in this life. That is all Buddhism is about. This mind, this attitude, this intent that doesn't appear, manifest, concern anything else in the entire universe. Only this experience. Please get that. Please, with that knowledge, arm yourself with the respect that your Buddha manifestation deserves. It is incredibly precious, incredibly short duration. But just like sitting on a nice, comfortable fence waiting for your friend, you can endure and enjoy for a long period of time, as opposed to living in samsaric realms, sitting on a picket fence where each minute seems like hours. Please choose Buddha. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for liking, subscribing, sharing. Don't forget to download the audio podcast if those are helpful tools for you. You can own them. They're free, right? The website, the bookstore. Make sure you have a Nichiren inscribed mandala, not some other carrot something. Talked about that so many times I don't want to repeat myself too much, but we want to practice Nichiren's doctrine of the Lotus Sutra, Buddhist self-practice, not somebody else's. What's the point? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I appreciate you guys more deeply than I can express with words. The fact that you're here it continuously amazes me. So thank you. Thank you for that. Please continue to inspire others. Those of you who are able to financially support this effort, you are Bodhisattva. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Please continue to do so. Please inspire others to do so. Let's grow this Sangha into a major force, so that we can repel the evils and disgusting natures in the world today that seem to just be popping up everywhere. We must put a halt to this propagation of non-life affirming, life disgusting affirmations of war and violence and hatred. How can those things have any place in a world of peace and beauty and appreciation, and most of all, Buddhist compassion? Hey, I will see you in the next one. Promise. Bye for now.